50%. That's a new tariff rate on a list of Canadian goods. That's dairy, alcohol, vehicles. After three presidential proclamations landed on July 20th, 2026. If you only caught the headline this morning from AP News or wherever you get your news from, you didn't get the full effective date, the exclusions, or what's actually confirmed versus what's still moving. And that gap is exactly where a bad procurement decision gets made. That's where I want to go ahead and get into a little bit more detail with you today. Plus Brazil's 25% tariff, which goes live in less than 24 hours. Before we get into it, one distinction, and it matters most today because of Canada. Now, confirmed means that a proclamation is signed or a Section 301 action is final. Section 338, it is from the Tariff Act of 1930. And like any and all of these tariff acts, Section 338 could possibly be challenged in court. But right now, for preparation, we're going to go ahead and act like it's happening as of August 19th. There's an effective date on the calendar, even if that date hasn't arrived yet. Proposed means it still has to go through the hearings, it still needs to build a legal record. There is not a final rate or a locked in effective date. Now, here's what lands today. The Canada 50% tariff is confirmed. I'm going to repeat that. Here's exactly where this lands today. The Canada 50% tariff, it's confirmed. Three Section 338 proclamations signed, but it does not take effect until August 19th. That's next month. That's 4 weeks out. If you're reacting like something is already being collected at the border on Canadian goods, you're reacting to a headline, not an entry date. Brazil's 25% is also confirmed, and that one takes effect on July 22nd. The forced labor tariffs I'll cover later are still proposed. Now, I will tell you which is which every single time because a procurement action is different for each one. This is your Trade and Tariff Intelligence Briefing for July 21st, 2026. I'm Rami Verk, Procurement Leader, Trade and Tariff Risk Strategist, Subject Matter Expert, 20 plus years in supply chain, founder of Career Chronicles, and creator of the Tariff Operating System. Brazil's tariff goes final on July 22nd. Canada's 50% lands on August 19th. The US and Mexico are at the table in Mexico City through Wednesday. And two more proclamations touch aluminum investing and defense sourcing. My full analysis, citations, and tools are at careerchronicles.org. Links are going to be in the show notes or description. Let's get right into it. Brazil Section 301, that's less than 24 hours. And this is the most time critical item today, Brazil. This is a confirmed action. The 25% Section 301 tariff on covered Brazilian goods takes effect at 12:01 Eastern Time, July 22nd. Coffee, beef, orange products, certain energy and aerospace products are among the reported exemptions. But that coverage has yet to be confirmed at the HTS level, not by product name. In transit relief. Now, that generally requires loading before the effective date, which is July 22nd, and entry or warehouse withdrawal before 12:01 Eastern Time on July 29th. No public CBP implementation bulletin was available as of this morning's cutoff. The procurement action. You need to verify entering timing tonight, not tomorrow morning. Reconcile broker instructions, the PO tariff clauses, and the FTZ statuses against the actual HTS lines. FTZ stands for Foreign Trade Zones. Just for the record, HTS stands for Harmonized Tariff Schedule as well, if that is what you are unsure of. So let me repeat that last line again for everyone. You need to reconcile broker instructions, your PO tariff clauses, and your foreign trade zone status against the Harmonized Tariff Schedule. Anything landing right about midnight on the 22nd needs its own line item, and it needs this to be not a guess. Now, if you have a tariff operating system, I actually created one. This is a check. Your 90-day tariff risk calendar, the July 22nd effective date, and July 29th in transit deadline are both live. Confirm both are on your working copy tonight. If you don't have the calendar, you can get it in the description. If you have the tariff playbook suite, this is exactly the immediate response protocol for confirmed imminent Section 301 action. Run it now, not tomorrow. If you're just using a regular tracker, you need to go ahead and follow that same process where you're using the immediate response protocol. You can just go to my website and you can actually see what the Tariff Playbook Suite is, and there'll be an image of the actual, the immediate response protocol there. Okay? So moving on. Now, this is for Canada. The three proclamations, the 50% and USMCA, it does not save you. Now, I'm going to give you the headline numbers first, then I'm going to hold back the part that actually matters because it's the part that catches procurement teams off guard. And I don't want you tuning out before we get fully into it. It's coming down in later in the podcast. Okay, so here we go. 50%. We already talked about the three signed proclamations under Section 338 of the Tariff Act. It's effective at 12:01 a.m. Eastern on August 19th. So it's not today, it's not this week, so you have a little breathing room. If you've been leaning on the USMCA to keep your Canadian imports safe, there's one detail in these proclamations that changes that math. I'll get into that in a second. First, what's actually covered. Now, these are the covered categories reported so far. We have the dairy proteins, whey milk, powder, syrups, wine, non alcoholic beer, hockey sticks, cement, peppermint oil, casein, and select motor vehicles and alcoholic beverages. Now, for syrups, we're talking about maple syrup, etc. There's quite a few other things that are included in that, but that's the most obvious for a lot of folks. Now, here's the detail I flagged. Covered goods can be hit even when they otherwise qualify as USMCA originating. Repeat that again. Now, here's a detail I flagged. Covered goods can be hit even when they otherwise qualify as USMCA originating. When I say that again slower, USMCA origin does not automatically protect a covered product from this action. If your Canadian SKU falls inside one of these categories, the trade agreement doesn't save it. And when I'm talking about SKUs, I'm talking about product IDs, material IDs as well. Now, excluded energy, potash, fish, critical minerals, the Section 232 goods, and qualifying civil aircraft articles. Now, covered FTZ admissions. FTZ stands for, again, Foreign Trade Zone. Those are on or after August 19th, and they require privileged foreign status. That's a compliance step, not a footnote. Canada, in general, has offered to negotiate, but Ontario is separately pushing for dollar retaliation. No final Canadian retaliation list was available as of 7:17 this morning at the time of this recording. So don't build a retaliation tariff line into your model yet. There isn't one to build. Now, here's some procurement actions. Match every Canadian SKU against all three product annexes this week, not the week of August 19th. You need to model a 50-point landed cost increase on anything that lands inside the covered lists. Start identifying pre-August 19th sourcing alternatives now while you still have a 4-week runway. Now, here's a quick gap check while it's still fresh. Pull your own Canadian HTS lines and run them through the free HTS rate lookup at careerchronicles.org tonight. You'll know in under a minute whether you're actually exposed, and most people find out they're carrying more covered lines than they originally thought. Now, here is if again you have my tariff operating system, here's the impact check, the tracker, and the confirmed Section 338 action, all three annexes, and the exclusion list. For the 90-day tariff risk calendar, add August 19th as the implementation deadline with earlier prep dates for HTS and country of origin review. For the tariff impact automation suite, you need to add a dedicated 50% exposure scenario and supplier risk review for every covered line. Now, confirmed doesn't mean urgent today. It means the clock started yesterday and it runs out on August 19th. For everyone's reference, whenever I do the TOS impact check, if you don't want to use my tariff operating system, that's fine. But if you do go to careerchronicles.org, I do have images of my actual system, so you can create one on your own. Mine is field tested. It has all the formulas and it has everything in there. But I'm sure if you want to create your own, you have the time for it, go for it. It's just for me to go ahead and be speaking to everyone on how I'm doing things, and that's why I include the TOS impact check, because this is for me on how I'm actually prepping for this as someone who's a subject matter expert and who's been doing this for over 20 years. And that's the information that I'm giving you. Now, if you, for any reason, if this kind of breakdown is useful, please hit subscribe. Two confirmed actions moved in 1 week. This is exactly the pace this show exists for. USMCA, Mexico City, live through Wednesday. Okay, so if you're listening to this at a later date, this was recorded on July 21st. So when I say it's live through Wednesday, it's live through July 22nd. USMCA, it's an active negotiation. Agreement is still in force and it's happening right now. So I'm going to go ahead and add something on here. Just so everyone is aware, Canada is excluded from the current USMCA negotiating round. Since the negotiations have stalled with Canada, the current trade round is bilateral now between the United States and Mexico. Canada remains largely outside the negotiations as trade tensions escalate following the July 20th Section 338 tariff announcements. So, for the procurement action, do not remove USMCA treatment from Canadian goods that currently qualify. Maintain certificates, origin affidavits, and regional value support while separately analyzing the new Section 338 exposure. The third bilateral US Mexico negotiating round runs July 21st through the 23rd in Mexico City. That's today through Wednesday. So, what's on the table? Automotive rules of origin, steel and aluminum, economic security, labor, agriculture, electronic payments, and third country content. One previously reported U.S. proposal would require 50% of the value of North American built vehicles to originate in the United States, a significant departure from current regional rules. That proposal is not an effective customs requirement. So, your procurement action there is automotive, metals, electronics, and industrial buyers should obtain current bills of material, component country data, steel and aluminum origin, regional value calculations, and Chinese content exposure from Mexican suppliers. Continue using the existing USMCA rules for qualifying imports, but proposed rules in scenario models only. Now, Washington is pushing for tighter controls on non USMCA inputs and higher required US content. That's the automotive exposure point. I'm going to go ahead and pause real quick to mention one thing. If you heard President Trump speak to, I believe it was Scott Bessent in regards to Spain, this is not that. This is USMCA. I just want to make sure I completely get everybody up to date. That's something that we may or may not discuss at a later time. It did not make my list, I think, as of today. If I do put it in here, you will hear about it. The procurement action. Okay, for the folks that are in automotive and metals, and the teams that I'm talking to are the procurement, the buyers, supply chain, anybody in finance. You need to go ahead and logistics. You need to go ahead and map Chinese and other non USMCA content through tier 2 and tier 3 suppliers. You don't need to lock in long term pricing assumptions until the Wednesday readout. Just for the record, the automotive rules of origin conversation could move that number. Now, TOS impact check, nothing to add to the tracker yet. This is a monitor only item until Wednesday's readout. If automotive content thresholds move, the tariff scenario strategy kit sourcing models are the thing that gets touched. For the most part, your 90-day tariff first calendar should be accurate. And if you need to go ahead and make adjustments, make it there. Aluminum, a reduced rate path for onshoring. Now, this is a Section 232 development that could be easy to miss because it's a benefit, not a duty. Commerce has been directed to build a program letting approved primary aluminum onshoring investment plans import up to their anticipated future U.S. output. That's at half the otherwise applicable Section 232 rate. To qualify, projects must commit to begin construction by January 20th, 2029. Now, for the implementing guidance from the Commerce, it's still pending. The eligibility and audit rules have not been published as of this morning, which is July 21st, 7:25 a.m., the time of this recording. Now, here's the procurement actions. If you're aluminum intensive, start assessing whether a consortium, a tolling arrangement, or a supplier backed investment could qualify. Now, finance should not book any tariff savings until Commerce actually issues eligibility and audit rules. This is a pathway, not a rate cut you can use today. Now, for the TOS, that's the Tariff Operating System, impact check, your tracker. Add as a confirmed proclamation awaiting commerce implementation. For the tariff playbook suite, add a decision point for aluminum importers evaluating qualifying investment. Nothing changes in the tariff autofill tool until Commerce publishes the operational rate treatment. And that tariff autofill tool is automatically updated, so you don't actually have to do any updating yourself. You just know when to download. And the next download should be happening within the next 72 hours because of the Section 122. Those are expiring as of the 24th. Actually, on the 23rd, but the 24th is when it'll come out. The defense raw material traceability is coming. This one's procurement adjacent, not a tariff, but it belongs on your tracker if you touch defense related sourcing. Now, starting on January 1st, 2027, covered material waivers largely stop being available unless a contractor has an accepted mitigation plan on file. Government agencies have 180 days from July 20th to publish supply chain mapping guidance, then 90 more days for regulations. The proposed approach includes an indentured bill of materials, tracing components all the way back to raw material origin. The procurement action here: defense primes and their suppliers should start collecting smelter, refiner, and country of origin data now. 18 months sounds far away in July 2026, but it will not sound far away in late 2026. And as you know, if you've ever done this, this can be time consuming. So make sure you're starting now. An unqualified domestic source generally won't establish non availability without documented, funded qualification work behind it. So the TOS impact check, again, the tariff operating system impact check for the tracker, add as a confirmed executive order awaiting agency implementation. For the tariff playbook suite, the supplier origin verification and escalation steps for defense related procurement likely need an update once mapping guidance is published. Tariff impact automation suite, this is a future supplier concentration and country risk input, not an action item yet. Repeat that, not an action item yet. Now, here's the bonus information that I was telling you about when we were talking earlier in the beginning of this podcast. The Canadian motor vehicle dispute triggers product specific duties. Now, we talked about this as being a confirmed action. This is a motor vehicle proclamation that finds that Canada discriminates against U.S. automotive commerce through tariffs and tariff rate quotas applied to U.S. vehicles. I'm going to skip over a few things and go straight into it. Canada currently applies a 25% tariff to specified U.S. vehicles that do not qualify for USMCA treatment and applies tariffs to non Canadian and non Mexican content in certain qualifying U.S. vehicles. The U.S. proclamation responded by imposing a 50% tariff on specified Canadian products after the required 30-day implementation period. Now, the legal annex, rather than the title of the dispute, it determines which Canadian imports are subject to the duty. The immediate procurement action is this: you need to separate Canadian automotive exposure into finished vehicles, components, raw materials, Section 232 covered metals, and other goods included in the Section 338 annex. This is going to require brokers to document the applicable Chapter 99 code and the legal reason for any exclusion. I am going to end with this on this specific situation. We don't know if this can be rolled back. We don't know if, for any reason, what can happen as far as these talks right now with USMCA, if that's going to affect this. And we definitely do not know if this is going to be challenged in court. So we need to just get our tracker ready and our calendar ready, acting as if this is going to happen. All right, moving to the next one. Canadian dairy dispute produces a separate Section 338 tariff list. Now, the dairy proclamation responds to Canada's administration of tariff rate quotas for cheese. The U.S. alleges that Canadian allocation rules favor European Union commerce under CETA over comparable U.S. commerce under USMCA. And now here, a 50% additional tariff will apply to specified Canadian products in the proclamation's annex beginning August 19th. And basically, the duties are generally additional to other applicable charges, but they are subject to 232, and most civil aircraft goods are excluded. Procurement action, if this is what you deal with regarding dairy exposure. You need to map direct and indirect Canadian dairy exposure, including finished products, ingredients, private label goods, distributor purchases, and food service contracts. Now, this is going to require suppliers to identify the importer of record and the precise HTS classification before approving tariff related price increases. And again, the tracker update, how you're going to update your tracker. The program is going to be the Canada Dairy Section 338 action. Your status is going to be confirmed. The current stage is going to be pre implementation, and the affected countries are going to be Canada and the United States. The affected products are specified Canadian products listed in the Dairy Proclamation Annex. This is going to fall under the Tariff Authority of Section 338, Tariff Act of 1930, and the current rate, you're going to add the additional 50% on covered products. So this is going to be one of those tariff layering situations. The effective date is going to be August 19th, and your next deadline date is going to be August 19th, 2026. Now, your procurement status is going to be product level exposure and supplier price validation review required. Again, if you have a tracker, you can go ahead and follow these rules as well. My TOS system, the tariff operating system, this specifically has where this applies to. If you have the 90-day tariff risk calendar, this will help you there. Anyway, and that's free. Now, the third one, the alcoholic beverage dispute, and that's what produced the third Canada tariff action. Here's a summary. It's a confirmed action. The Alcoholic Beverage Proclamation responded to Canadian provincial and territorial restrictions on U.S. wine, beer, and distilled spirits. The proclamation states that most Canadian jurisdictions stopped purchasing or selling U.S. alcoholic beverages beginning in March 2025. That was right around Liberation Day, and that U.S. alcohol exports to Canada subsequently declined substantially. The resulting U.S. action imposes an additional 50% duty on specified Canadian products beginning on August 19th. The procurement action, now this is mostly for hospitality, retail, food service, and beverage procurement teams. They should identify Canadian wine, beer, spirits, packaging, and distributor exposure. Do not assume all Canadian alcoholic beverages are included. Validate the legal tariff lines in the annex. For your tracker update, the program you're going to identify is the Canada Alcoholic Beverage Section 338 action. You're going to go ahead and put the status as confirmed. The current stage is pre-implementation. The affected countries are Canada, the United States, and your affected products are going to be specified Canadian products listed in the Alcoholic Beverage Proclamation Annex. Now, your tariff authority that you're going to list is a Section 338, Tariff Act of 1930. Your current rate is going to be an additional 50% on covered products. Again, tariff layering. And the next deadline is going to be August 19th, 2026, as well as the effective date is going to mirror that. Now, your procurement status is beverage classification, distributor, and landed cost review is going to be required. The Section 338 duties apply even when products qualify under USMCA. Here's your summary. This status is confirmed implementation rule. The White House states that the new Section 338 duties apply to covered Canadian goods regardless of whether they qualify as originating goods under USMCA. But USMCA qualification may still determine the underlying ordinary duty, but it does not by itself eliminate the new additional tariff. Section 338 and USMCA therefore require separate determination. Your procurement action is to add separate fields for USMCA qualification and Section 338 applicability to every Canadian SKU. Retain valid USMCA documentation while calculating the additional tariff independently. Do not instruct brokers to remove Section 338 solely because a certificate of origin exists. Your tracker update, the program is Canada Section 338 USMCA interaction. The status is confirmed implementation requirement. The current stage is pre-entry classification and preference review, and the affected countries, Canada and the United States, affected products, covered Canadian origin merchandise. Your tariff authority is Section 338 and USMCA, and the current rate, additional 50%, were covered by Section 338. The effective date, August 19, 2026. Your next deadline is going to say the CBP implementation guidance because we have to wait on that. Your procurement status is separate preference and additional duty determines required. Section 232 goods are excluded from the new Canada tariffs. Now, this is a summary, and this is confirmed statutory interaction. The Canada fact sheet and dairy proclamation state that the Section 338 duties do not apply to goods already subject to Section 232 measures. So you do not have to layer this on top of 232. Energy, potash, fish, critical minerals, and certain other goods are also excluded. This does not necessarily create the duty free treatment. It may mean that the item remains governed by its existing Section 232 regime rather than receiving an additional Section 338 layer. Now, the procurement action here is that you're going to build an entry line tariff interaction matrix showing 232 status, Section 338 status, USMCA treatment, and every applicable exclusion. I already have that in my TOS. I'm going to actually do a full walkthrough if you're using my TOS on all of this. And as we get Section 338 rolled out, just like with Section 122, I had an updated version that was rolled out to anyone who purchased the $27 product or the $199 tariff impact automation suite. I had it already rolled up in there. So, and into all of my products, which means that you paid once. A lot of the folks that have purchased my products in the past have paid once for the $27 tariff playbook suite, and they constantly get these updates free of charge. Same thing for the tariff impact automation suite. They constantly get these updates free of charge. Same thing for the 90-day tariff risk calendar. I constantly update information like this in there, and then I roll it out so everyone can get it. If you've already downloaded it once, then you will continue to get the updates. If you don't want to use the updates, that's fine, but you still get them for free with all of my TOS products. And this is going to be the same thing, just for the record. Then your required compliance or broker approval before finance assumes that a Section 338 exclusion eliminates all additional tariffs. Now, for your tracker update, the program is going to be Canada Section 338, Section 232 interaction. The status is going to be confirmed. The current stage, product level implementation review. Affected countries, Canada and United States, and then affected products are Section 232 covered goods and other stated exclusions. The tariff authority is going to fall under Section 232 and 338. That's what you're going to choose. And the current rate is going to be product and program specific. The effective date, August 19, 2026, for the new Section 338 actions. Your next deadline is the CBP implementation guidance, which we're waiting on. The procurement status is tariff interaction and exclusion basis validation required. So you're going to set yourself up for this so that you can have your forecast and budgets in as far as any cost increases, but you're not going to have to pay any duties or tariffs yet. You just need to be prepared. One more thing. The postal import treatment is also approaching a July 24 transition. Now I'm going to try to keep it brief. Here's a summary. The status is confirmed. It's a temporary treatment. The temporary duty applied to dutiable postal shipments is tied to the Section 122 rate. It remains in place until the Section 122 surcharge expires or CBP's new postal entry process becomes effective, whichever occurs first. Postal carriers must collect and remit the applicable duty, and the origin and value of covered postal goods must be declared to CBP. The procurement action here is you need to confirm transition procedures with postal carriers, express providers, and customs brokers. You need to review samples, replacement parts, consumer direct fulfillment, and low value procurement flows that currently use postal channels. Now, for the tracker update, it's going to be the program is temporary postal import duty treatment. The status is active, transition approaching, and your current stage is end of measure or replacement process preparation. The affected countries are countries covered by the current postal treatment. Affected products are dutiable postal shipments. The tariff authority is presidential action tied to Section 122 and de minimis suspension. The current rate is tied to the temporary Section 122 rate, and the effective date is active. Next deadline is July 24, 2026, which is days away, or earlier effective date of CBP's replacement process. We don't have that as of right now. Your procurement status is carrier, broker, and low value shipment transition review is required. Two items still sitting on the clock that didn't get their own segment today, and that's Section 122, the temporary 10% global surcharge expires at 12:01 Eastern, July 24th. That's only a few days out from now. Nothing new to report, but the clock didn't stop moving just because Canada and Brazil took the headlines. Do remember that Section 122 can only be extended if Congress acts and goes into motion. Regarding the forced labor Section 301, that's still the largest unresolved risk on the board. USTR had not published final rates by this morning's cutoff. Keep two landed cost scenarios live: expiration with no immediate and replacement by proposed the 10% or the 12.5% duties. Don't collapse those into one number yet. Now, the tariff operating system, the TOS impact check, the 90-day tariff risk calendar already carries the July 24th, and the tariff refunds. For the tariff refund suite, you just need to monitor only. There's no automatic update. I mean, that only happens unless entries get misassessed once the surcharge lapses. Now, here are your 5 moves this week. Let me give you the 5 things to act on today. 1. Brazil. Verify entry timing as soon as possible. 1. Brazil. Verify entry timing today, tonight. The confirmed duty is under 24 hours. 2. Canada. Match every Canadian SKU against all 3 Section 338 annexes this week. You'll have a 4-week runway to August 19th. Use it. 3. And this is regarding USMCA. Pull Tier 2 and Tier 3 non-USMCA content data before Wednesday's readout changes the automotive path. Number 4, aluminum. If you're aluminum intensive, start the qualification conversation now. This is a multi-year runway, not a this week decision, but the earlier you start, the more optionality you keep. 5, defense sourcing. If you touch defense-related procurement, please start collecting smelter and country of origin data before the mapping guidance publishes, not after. Okay, here are the deadlines and days to monitor. I'm going to go ahead and briefly touch on these. Some of these were not mentioned in the full podcast today, but they are included in the description below, as well as the full write-up at careerchronicles.org. 21st through July 23rd, 2026. That's the 3rd U.S.-Mexico bilateral USMCA negotiating round in Mexico City. Remember, Canada is opting out. On July 22nd, Brazil Section 301 tariff, it takes into effect. That's 25% additional duty applies to Brazilian origin imports entered for consumption or withdrawn from warehouse for consumption on or after the effective time unless the merchandise qualifies for an exemption in USTR's final annexes. July 24th is the Section 122 temporary import surcharge reaches the end of its 150-day statutory period. On that same day, July 24th, temporary postal import duty treatment is scheduled to transition. August 10th, Germany Pharmaceutical Section 301 comments and hearing requests are due. August 19th, new Canada Section 338 tariffs take into effect. September 22nd, 2026, Germany Pharmaceutical Section 301 hearing. The hearing begins at 10 a.m. in the U.S. International Trade Commission. 7 calendar days after the final Germany hearing date, post-hearing rebuttal comments are going to be due. Ongoing, the forced labor Section 301 remedy decision, it's going to continue on. The USTR completed its investigation, consultations, comment process, and hearings involving 60 economies. The final responsive action, rates, country treatment exclusions, and implementation dates remain pending. Now, what's also ongoing is the CBP IEPA refund processing. Again, I think as of yesterday, $82 billion had been scheduled to go ahead and get moved over to the Treasury. So if you want more information on that, you can also go to my site. Now, as far as all the news stories we've covered today, we covered a brief amount because otherwise I would have had 24 stories. You can always end up back on my site to go ahead and get other resources in the description below. In the description below, you will find the free 90-day calendar. Now, resources today. The 90-day Tariff Risk calendar, every deadline in this briefing, plus everything through the fall in one document. It has 6 tabs. It's free. So go to the description if you want to go ahead and get that if you're hearing this at a later date. And with 2 confirmed 50% and 25% actions moving on 2 different clocks, plus the USMCA, the aluminum and defense sourcing, all live at once. The Tariff Impact Automation Suite, it's built for exactly this. It models your exposure scenario by scenario, flags supplier risk, and gives you one dashboard instead of 6 spreadsheet you're updating by hand. Now, I'm going to tell you something about this. If you don't already know, I have what's called the command center. You basically enter your information into the workbook just like you would normally. You can download it from your ERP system. Very simple to do. What you also get, and this transformed everything for me, and I'm sure it'll do the same for you. You basically get a command center, and in that command center, it will go ahead and list everything, including a presentation mode that you can take to your board. So if somebody comes by your desk and says, "Hey," or somebody comes by your office, or somebody emails you and says, "Hey, did you hear about this? What do we do?" It takes you only 3 minutes, actually seconds, to go ahead and send them a copy of the presentation that shows what steps have been taken, what steps haven't, and it gives you a live dashboard that you can just give to anyone. It lives on your computer, you own it, and you don't have to have any outside connection. You just need to be able to connect to your own data, and that's it. And it's great. I'll link the video here. It's on YouTube on me going through this entire thing. So maybe this will be something you want to see or hear. Less than 24 hours on Brazil. 4 weeks on Canada. Both have been confirmed. Both need to be on your model tonight. The teams that come out ahead aren't the ones that are reacting on July 22nd or August 19th. They're the ones who built the file this week. For the full breakdown, the live tariff rate lookup, and the scenario planning framework, visit careerchronicles.org. Links are in the show notes or description. This has been your Tariff Intelligence Briefing for July 21st, 2026. I'm Rami Verk, and I'll see you on the next one.